He told me, "I'm just giving you a break," but my husband kept taking our baby to his mom's house over and over, and something about the timing felt wrong, so I did the one thing he didn't expect. Before we dive in, if you enjoy full Reddit-style relationship stories with family drama, custody chaos, and receipts that change everything, make sure you subscribe to Reddit Story Vault and hit like. We're pushing for our first 1,000 subscribers, and your support seriously helps more than you think. All right, here's what happened. I'm 28, and I had our son, Liam, about 3 months ago. My pregnancy was rough and delivery was worse. I had an emergency C-section after 18 hours of labor, and I didn't bounce back the way people act like you're supposed to. I bled a lot. I was dizzy for weeks. I couldn't even laugh without it feeling like my stitches were going to rip open. And on top of all that, I was exhausted in a way I didn't know a person could be. The kind of tired that makes your brain feel fuzzy, like you're walking through a room full of smoke and trying to remember why you walked in there in the first place. My husband, Connor, is 31. Before the baby, he was fine. Not perfect, but fine. He worked, he helped around the apartment, he was affectionate, he wasn't some monster. That's what made this so confusing at first. Nothing about him screamed future custody fight. His mom, though, Diane, that woman has been an issue since the day I met her. Diane is the type of mother who acts like her son is a gift to women everywhere, and any woman who wins him should be grateful and obedient. She calls him my boy like he's 8 years old. She still buys him clothes. She has opinions about everything: how I dress, how I talk, what I eat, what I post, how I breathe. When I got pregnant, she didn't say congratulations. She said, "Well, I hope you're ready to do things the right way. A baby is a huge responsibility." Then, like it was a warning, she added, "Connor needs stability. A baby needs stability." I didn't forget that. After Liam was born, she suddenly became obsessed with being involved. Not helpful involved, more like supervising, inspecting. She'd come over and stand behind me while I fed him, like she was grading my performance. Is he latching right? Are you sure you're holding his head properly? I think he's still hungry. I think he's too cold. I think he's too hot. Then she started talking to Connor like I wasn't there. "If she's having trouble, you can bring Liam to me. I know what I'm doing. I raised Connor by myself, and he turned out great." Connor would just smile and say, "Yeah, Mom, I know." And I would tell myself, "She's annoying, but she's not dangerous. She's just one of those MILs who can't let go." The first time Connor took Liam to Diane's house without me, he framed it as a favor. "You've barely slept," he said. "Mom offered to watch him for a couple hours. You can shower, nap, breathe." I remember looking at him like, is this what supportive husbands do? Is this the moment where I'm supposed to feel grateful? So I said yes. And for 2 hours I slept so hard I woke up drooling, confused, like I'd been drugged. When Connor came back with Liam, he was calm. Connor looked proud, like he'd solved something. "See," he said, "Mom's good with him. You needed that." But something felt off. Not with Liam, with Connor. Because he didn't just look helpful, he looked relieved, like something had gone according to plan. I ignored the feeling. New moms ignore a lot of feelings. You don't have the energy to chase every weird vibe. A few days later, he asked again, and then again. And then it started becoming a thing. Connor would wake up, see me sitting on the couch with Liam, and say, "You look tired. I'll take him to Mom's." Sometimes I'd say, "No, I want him here." And Connor would respond with this soft voice that sounded kind but carried pressure. "Babe, you've been crying a lot. You're not really eating. You need support." Or he'd say, "You can't pour from an empty cup." Or, "You deserve a break." It was always the same theme: I wasn't okay, and he was being responsible. And I'm not going to lie, postpartum hit me hard. I wasn't happy, glowing mommy. I was healing. I was raw. I was emotional. Some days I did cry for no reason. But crying doesn't mean you're unsafe. Crying means you're a human being whose body just went through trauma. Still, the way Connor kept saying it, "You've been crying a lot," started to make me feel like my feelings were evidence against me. Then Diane started texting me. At first, it was sweet. "Hi, honey. Connor said you're exhausted. Don't worry, we've got Liam. Rest is important. Let Connor handle things. You're doing great, but don't push yourself." Then the tone changed. "Connor told me you were upset again today. Have you talked to your doctor? It's not normal to be that emotional. Postpartum depression is serious. Babies can sense stress. I just want what's best for Liam." Every message was dipped in concern with a sharp edge underneath. And the craziest part was, Connor never defended me. He'd see her texts and just shrug like she's trying to help. Then one morning I heard him on the phone in the kitchen. I wasn't trying to listen. I was walking to get water, and I froze because I heard my name. Connor said, quiet and serious, "Yeah, I'm documenting it." I stood there, barefoot, holding my cup. Diane's voice came through the speaker, muffled but clear enough. "Good, because if she spirals, we need to be ready." "Connor, I'm doing everything the right way. I'm keeping Liam safe." "Diane, you're a good father." I swear my heart stopped. I stepped back before he could see me. I didn't want him to know I heard. I went back to the couch and sat down, staring at Liam's tiny hands like they were the only real thing in the world. Because suddenly the pattern made sense. The breaks, the "you've been crying a lot," the constant trips to Diane's house. This wasn't about helping me. This was about building a story. So I started paying attention, really paying attention. Connor began taking Liam to Diane's house at very specific times, usually mid-morning, sometimes late afternoon, always when I was alone with Liam and Connor had just checked in on me. He'd ask questions like, "Did you eat today? How many hours did you sleep? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you having intrusive thoughts?" And if I said, "Yes, I'm overwhelmed," he'd nod like he was confirming something. Then he'd say, "Okay, I'll take Liam to Mom's. You need rest." And he'd leave. Sometimes for 2 hours, sometimes for 4. Once he was gone almost 6. When I asked why, he said Mom needed help with something. But he didn't explain what. And Diane didn't work. She didn't have medical issues. She just liked being in control. So I started tracking the days. Monday, Connor took Liam to Diane's for 3 hours. Wednesday, 2.5 hours. Friday, 4 hours. Sunday, just a quick visit, turned into 5 hours. It wasn't occasional help anymore. It was routine. And the more it happened, the more Connor acted like Liam wasn't fully mine. Like Liam belonged to the family, and I was just the unstable person who happened to give birth. Then one day, I said something simple. "Hey, can you not take him today? I want to spend the day with him. I'm feeling better." Connor's smile flickered. "Babe," he said you slept 2 hours. I can still hold my baby." He exhaled like I was being difficult. "Why are you making this a fight?" "I'm not," I said. "I just want my son here." Connor's voice got colder. "Do you hear yourself? This is exactly what I mean. You're getting worked up over nothing." "Nothing! My baby!" I stared at him, and it hit me. He wasn't treating me like a partner. He was treating me like a risk. I didn't argue. I just said, "Fine." And he took Liam anyway. When the door closed, the apartment went silent, and I sat there shaking. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to guess anymore. I was going to get proof. Connor drove a newer SUV with a built-in navigation system. He always bragged about it like it made him a pilot. I remembered he'd once shown me that the car kept a history of recent destinations. So the next day, while he was in the shower, I grabbed his keys. My hands were shaking so badly I had to take a breath before I walked outside. I got into the driver's seat and turned the car on. The screen lit up. I opened the navigation menu, Recent Destinations, and there it was, Diane's address, over and over. But it wasn't just her address. There were other addresses mixed in. One that showed up twice a week, a house about 20 minutes from Diane's. Another that showed up once. And then the one that made my stomach drop. A law office. Not a hospital, not a pediatrician, not a pharmacy. A law office. I clicked it. Saved destination, Hartwell Family Law. My mouth went dry. Because you don't casually take a newborn to a family law office unless something is happening behind your back. I took photos of the screen with my phone, every destination, every timestamp the system showed. Then I scrolled deeper. More history, more repeats. Diane's house wasn't just helping. Diane's house was becoming Liam's second home. And if Connor's plan was what I thought it was, they were building a routine so they could say, he's been spending most days with us. The car history wasn't just driving, it was a timeline. I turned the car off, locked it, and walked back inside like my legs were made of glass. Connor came out of the shower smiling, towel around his waist, acting normal. "Feel better today?" he asked. I looked at him and realized something terrifying. He could smile at me while he was planning to take my baby. I said quietly, "Yeah, better." That afternoon, Connor announced he was taking Liam to Diane's again. I didn't fight, I didn't beg, I just said, "Okay." Then I waited. I watched the clock. 2 hours passed, then 3. My heart was pounding. I kept thinking, what if he doesn't come back? At hour 4, Connor texted, "Mom says you should rest. Don't stress. He's fine." Mom says. I didn't respond. When he finally came home, he walked in like everything was normal. Liam was asleep in the car seat. Connor kissed Liam's head like a hero and said, "See? Peaceful." I forced a smile. That night, while Connor slept, I sat in the dark living room with my phone and those photos from the car, and I made a plan. First, I called my best friend, Tessa. She's blunt, loyal, and the kind of friend who doesn't sugarcoat. I told her everything. She didn't hesitate. "Maya," she said, "you need a lawyer. Tomorrow. Not next week. Tomorrow." I whispered, "What if I'm wrong?" Tessa said, "If you're wrong, you wasted one appointment. If you're right, you could lose your baby." That sentence hit me so hard I started shaking again. The next morning, I called a family law attorney. I didn't tell Connor, I didn't tell Diane. I just went. The lawyer was a woman named Erica, probably mid-40s, calm eyes, no drama. She listened while I poured everything out. The texts, the documenting, the trips, the law office and the GPS history. Erica didn't look shocked. She looked like she'd seen this movie before. "Let me guess," she said. "They're framing this as concern for your mental health." I swallowed. "Yes." Erica nodded. "Classic. They'll claim you're unstable, overwhelmed, unsafe. They'll say he's the primary caregiver, and they'll use any moment of normal postpartum emotion as proof." I felt like I couldn't breathe. Erica leaned forward. "Do you have any diagnoses, any records that you're a danger?" No, I said quickly. I've been checked. My doctor said I'm normal postpartum. Good, Erica said. Get copies of every appointment note. We want a paper trail that you're seeking care, that you're medically cleared, that you're stable. Then she said the words that changed everything. And you need to stop letting him take the baby without your consent. I whispered, how? Erica's tone turned firm. You file for a temporary custody order, today if we can, something that prevents him from removing the child from your primary residence without agreement. And you start collecting evidence, every text, every trip, every time he uses language like, "you're unstable." My stomach turned, because suddenly this wasn't a relationship issue. This was a legal war, and I didn't start it, but I had to finish it. That evening, Connor came home acting cheerful. He said, "Mom invited us for dinner tomorrow." I smiled like I wasn't terrified. "Sounds good," I said. Then he added casually, like it was nothing, "Oh, and Mom thinks it might help if Liam stays with her overnight this weekend, just so you can reset." Overnight? My heart screamed. I kept my voice steady. "I'll think about it." Connor nodded like he'd won something. "Good. Mom just wants what's best." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat up scrolling through Diane's texts, and once I looked at them through this new lens, I saw it. Every message wasn't support. It was documentation bait. "Connor told me you were upset again today. It's not normal to be that emotional. Babies can sense stress. I just want what's best for Liam." If I replied defensively, they'd screenshot it and say I was aggressive. If I replied emotionally, they'd say I was unstable. If I didn't reply, they'd say I was withdrawing. It was a trap. And the scariest part? Connor was helping her set it. Here's where the mid-story hook happened. Because what I found next wasn't just suspicious. It was proof. The next morning, Connor left his laptop open on the kitchen table while he ran to grab coffee. Connor is normally protective of his devices. Face ID, passwords, the whole thing. But he left it open. Maybe he was getting sloppy. Maybe he thought I was too tired to notice. I walked over and saw an email tab open. And there, in plain text, was a thread with the subject line, "Custody Strategy Initial Consultation Notes." My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. I clicked it. It was an email from, Hartwell Family Law. It listed next steps and recommended documentation. One line said, "Continue maintaining a consistent caregiving schedule with paternal family support." Another said, "Consider supervised evaluations if maternal mental health concerns continue." Maternal mental health concerns? I hadn't even been diagnosed with anything. Then I scrolled down, and I saw Diane included in the email chain. Diane, not me, not family, just Connor and Diane planning. I took photos of the screen with my phone so fast my hands cramped. Then I heard keys at the door. Connor. I slammed the laptop shut, stepped back, and forced my face neutral. He walked in smiling, like a man who didn't know his mask was slipping. "Coffee run took forever," he said. I nodded. "Yeah." He went to the sink, washed his hands, looked at Liam. Then he said, "I'm going to take him to Mom's for a bit." Like it was automatic. And I said, calmly, "No." Connor froze. He turned to me. "What?" I repeated, "No, he's staying here today." Connor's eyes narrowed slightly. "Why?" "Because I'm his mother," I said, "and I want him here." Connor's voice dropped into that careful tone again. "Maya, you're getting emotional." I stared at him and realized something. He used the word emotional like a weapon. I said, "I'm not emotional. I'm saying no." Connor's jaw tightened. "Mom's expecting him." I replied, "Then tell her no, too." Connor laughed, like I'd said something ridiculous. "That's not how this works." I said, "Actually, it is." Connor stepped closer. "Are you trying to keep my son from my family?" There it was. Not our son, my family, his narrative. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't cry, I didn't give him anything he could twist. I simply said, "I'm protecting our son from being used as a pawn." Connor's face changed for a second, like a flash of panic. Then he forced a calm expression. "You're paranoid," he said softly. "This is exactly what Mom was worried about." He turned away, grabbed his phone, and walked into the bedroom. And I heard him making a call. I crept closer, not fully, just enough to hear. Connor said, "Yeah, she's doing it again." Then quieter, "No, I'm calm, I'm not escalating." Then, "I don't know, she's refusing to let me take Liam." Diane's voice replied through the phone, sharp and steady. "Don't argue with her. Let her talk. Let her show who she is." I felt ice spread through my chest. They were recording me without recording me. They were building a story simply by provoking me. So I did the one thing they couldn't use against me. I texted Connor from the couch, even though he was in the other room. "Connor, I'm aware you and Diane consulted a family law attorney. I saw the email. I have copies. If you attempt to remove Liam from this home without my consent, I will treat it as parental kidnapping, and I will call the police." A minute passed. Then Connor walked slowly out, face blank. He said, "You went through my laptop." I looked him in the eyes. "You planned to take my baby." Connor's voice turned cold. "You're not thinking clearly." I said, "I'm thinking clearly enough to know what you're doing." Connor's mouth tightened. "You're overreacting." Then he said the line that made everything crystal. "I'm trying to do what's best for Liam, even if that means protecting him from you." There it was. The threat finally said out loud. I took a slow breath. "Okay," I said. "Then we'll let a judge decide based on facts." Connor blinked. "What?" I smiled slightly. "Facts," I repeated. "Like your GPS history, and your emails, and Diane's texts, and my doctor's records." Connor's confidence cracked, just for a second. Then he grabbed his keys and stormed out. And you know what he did? He drove to Diane's. Because of course he did. He thought he could regroup the narrative, come back with support. But I wasn't alone anymore. That same day, Erica filed the temporary order paperwork. Tessa came over and stayed with me. She physically sat in my living room like a guard dog. We printed everything. GPS screenshots, email screenshots, text messages. I also did what Erica suggested. I went to my OB and requested printed notes from every postpartum visit. I requested the pediatric records that showed I was present, engaged, consistent. I requested documentation that I'd never missed an appointment, never raised safety concerns, never shown signs of psychosis. Because if they wanted to frame me, I was going to bury them in paperwork. Connor came back that evening with Diane. Not even kidding. He walked in first, and Diane followed behind him like she owned the place. Diane looked at me like a disappointed teacher. "Maya," she said, in that soft, fake voice, "we're worried about you." Tessa stood up immediately. "Who are you?" Diane blinked, offended. "I'm Liam's grandmother." Tessa smiled like a knife. "Cool. This isn't your house." Connor tried to take control. "Mom, it's fine." Then Connor looked at me and said, "We need to talk like adults." Diane added, "Yes, honey. Let's be calm. Let's not get hysterical." I felt my body want to shake. I felt my throat tighten.
But I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just said, "Diane, leave." She clutched her pearls. "Excuse me?" I repeated, "Leave." Connor stepped forward. "Maya, stop." Tessa stepped between us. "No, you stop." Connor glared at her, then at me. "You're doing exactly what we feared," he said. I looked at him and said quietly, "I know about Hartwell family law." Diane's face flickered. Connor's eyes widened slightly. Then Diane snapped back into character. "Oh, honey," she said, "that was just Connor asking for advice, because he's scared." I nodded like I was listening. Then I said, "Great," because I already filed. Connor froze. "You what?" I said, "Temporary custody order. You're not taking Liam anywhere without my consent. And Diane doesn't get to schedule overnights like she's his parent." Connor's voice rose. "You can't do that." I stayed calm. "I can." And I did. Diane's soft voice turned sharp. "You're making a huge mistake." I looked at her and said, "You're making the mistake. You thought I was too tired to fight back." Connor tried one more time. "Maya, just let Mom take Liam tonight. You're clearly overwhelmed." I smiled. "No."
Diane stepped forward, eyes hard now. "Then you're forcing us to take action." Tessa laughed. "Action? Like what? Another concern text?" Diane glared. "We're not the enemy here." I said, "Then stop acting like one." Connor reached toward Liam's bassinet like he was going to pick him up. Tessa moved instantly. "Don't." Connor snapped, "This is my son." And I said, very clearly, "If you touch him and try to leave, I'm calling the police." Connor stopped. For the first time, he looked unsure. Because bullies love confusion. They hate clarity. Diane hissed, "Connor, don't let her threaten you." Connor looked between us, jaw clenched. Then he did something that told me everything. He backed down. He didn't argue. He didn't insist. He just said, "Fine." And he left. With Diane. But before Diane walked out, she turned back and said, "This isn't over." And I said, "I know." 2 days later, the hearing happened for the temporary order. It wasn't some dramatic courtroom scene with a full trial. It was quick. But it mattered. Connor walked in with, you guessed it, Diane, and a lawyer. I walked in with Erica, and a file full of receipts. Connor tried to speak first. His lawyer did the whole concerned father performance. He said I was struggling. He said I was emotionally volatile. He said he was temporarily relocating the baby to a stable environment. Erica waited.
Then she said, "Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Bennett has been consulting family law counsel with his mother in preparation to build a custody narrative based on normal postpartum recovery." Then she handed over the exhibits. GPS history screenshots showing repeated trips to Diane's house. The law office destination logs. The email chain with Diane included discussing custody strategy. The text messages where Diane repeatedly wrote, "Connor told me you were upset again." Then Erica placed my medical records on the table. Postpartum checkups showing no safety concerns. Doctor notes stating patient-appropriate, oriented, no psychosis indicators. Pediatric records showing I attended and participated. The judge looked at Connor and said something I'll never forget.
"Mr. Bennett, why was your mother included in legal strategy emails regarding custody of your child?" Connor's lawyer tried to answer. Diane tried to speak. The judge cut her off. "You are not a party in this matter," he said. Diane's face turned red. Connor mumbled, "She was just supporting me." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Supporting you in removing a newborn from his mother without medical evidence of danger?" Connor didn't answer. Because he couldn't. The temporary order was granted. Connor was allowed parenting time, scheduled, specific. No more I'm taking him whenever he wanted. No more Diane acting like a co-parent. And the judge added a line that felt like oxygen.
Neither party will remove the child from the primary residence without written agreement or court order.
Connor's plan collapsed in one sentence. After the hearing, Connor tried to corner me in the hallway. He hissed, "You humiliated me." I stared at him. "You tried to take my baby." Connor's eyes flashed. "You're making me the bad guy." I said, "You did that yourself." Then I walked away. Here's the part people always ask, what happened after? Connor tried to play nice for about a week. He sent texts like, "I just want peace. I miss Liam. We should co-parent like adults." But Diane couldn't help herself. She started calling me from blocked numbers, leaving voicemails. "This is your fault. You're tearing the family apart. Connor deserves better. Liam will grow up knowing what you did." Erica told me not to respond. So I didn't. And without my reaction, Diane had nothing to feed on. Connor eventually filed for shared custody officially. That part was expected. But the difference was, now the court had already seen his tactics. He couldn't pretend this was sudden concern. He'd been planning it.
I didn't keep Liam from Connor. I kept Liam from Diane. And Connor had to choose, be a father or be his mom's puppet. He's still trying to walk that line. But I'm not confused anymore. I'm not scared of inside concern language. I know how that game works. And I have receipts. Now, here's what I want to ask you, because this is where people always split. Was I wrong for filing first the moment I saw the evidence, even though Connor hadn't physically taken Liam permanently yet? Do you think Connor was genuinely worried, or was this a calculated custody setup from the beginning? And if you were me, would you ever allow Diane around your child again? Ever? Even supervised? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them, and honestly, your perspective helps. And if you want more full Reddit stories like this, postpartum drama, toxic in-laws, cheating, revenge, custody chaos, subscribe to Reddit Story Vault and hit like. We're still pushing for our first 1,000 subscribers, and you being here matters.